My name is Ari Kalininsky from the CIO Association of Canada, and I'm here with my guest today, Theresa Payton. How are you, Theresa?
Great, thanks for having me here.
Theresa, how could CIOs approach security in a proactive way?
You know, you ask a great question about proactive, and I think most want to be proactive. You know, they want to have the right tools in place, the right people in place. I think the thing you have to think about first is, what are the business objectives? And then align the security goals and the security tools that they're enabling those objectives. That's really where you need to start first. The second piece, though, is a lot of times the conversation is backwards. So a lot of times the executives will say, so what are we doing so we don't get hacked? And I said that's a very impractical point of view. The more practical way to start with the strategy is to say, we're going to get hacked, most likely this year. And when we get hacked, how have we collected our data and stored it in such a way they can't run away with everything? And when will we know, and how will we recover? And if you start thinking strategically that way, you're going to win when there's a breach, because you're going to be better prepared, you'll have thought about the data differently in the first place, and you're not going to have a full-on disaster on your hands. So that's really kind of the two things. Make sure the security goals are aligned with the business objectives, and then the second thing is change the conversation. Start with, we're going to get breached. So the challenge is, how do we protect ourselves, and how do we make sure the breach is not a disaster?
What are some of the most serious threats impacting IT organizations nowadays?
You know, it's interesting, and we were just talking about this at the RSA Security Conference this week. Some of the old school, low budget techniques are still being used. And why is that? Because cyber criminals are lazy, and those attacks still work. So they're still going after your NT servers that you have in sunset, and the Windows XP machines, which by the way are out of service and out of life, and they're going for unpatched servers. So there's still sort of that low budget, low tech element happening. Cyber criminals, they go where the action is. And up until now, mobile wasn't as interesting to them because they could still go after the desktop, and the desktop ruled. But now that mobile is really outpacing desktops for where people do their banking and all of their sensitive transactions, now they're going where the action is.
What are your thoughts on some perspectives on security as being standing in the way of innovation?
If security stands in the way of innovation, we're not doing our job right. So one of the things that first needs to happen, again, that alignment of what are the business goals and how does security enable those business goals. And one thing I like to talk about is, you know, security teams need to figure out how to actually be part of the revenue generation conversation, and innovation is a huge piece of that. So one example is, in banking, we wanted consumers to adopt online banking, less expensive channel. And one of the challenges we were having is at the time they were saying, I'm not sure, I don't know if I'm on the right site, I'm not sure if I feel safe. And we had some big security projects we wanted to do, and we were trying to figure out how to get the funding. If you could drive more traffic away from the branches and the phone channel into the internet channel, you're going to increase the revenue of the bank, right? Because you're reducing expenses. And you might actually get new customer acquisition because of the demographics of up-and-comers that want to use that technology. So we came up in the innovation lab with the idea of creating a picture that you get to pick, and you get to put a passphrase with that picture. And so if you're on the legitimate banking website, you'd see your picture that you chose, and you type in your passphrase. Now, doing that, did that make your transaction that much safer? Actually not. So the only thing we did was we helped make sure you weren't at the wrong site, but the customer feeling about, I feel safer, helped generate a huge lead in adoption, and that gave us the funding to do other security projects we wanted to do. So if you can find a way to be creative and to actually show you're actually improving customer service, adding revenue to the bottom line, you're going to find the funding for the security projects.
Right. So it sounds like you found a way to actually have security advance innovation.
Exactly. And one of the things too is a lot of times in the security teams, there's such a grind going on. You've got the incident, handling you're doing, and you're patching things, and you're looking at malware, and you've got new security stuff coming in, and there's such a daily grind that goes on. You've got all these tasks that need to be done. You can't just say on Monday, from 9 to 10, we're going to innovate. You have to create a cultural balance on what goes on the security team's calendar so that they have the time to innovate. Whether it's taking them off the security operations center or taking them off task a couple hours a day and saying, I don't care what you do at this time, as long as you're focused on work. You're trying to solve a big problem, you're doing research, you're looking at other things. You can't plan innovation, you have to foster and cultivate that culture. And the security team can be just as innovative, you just have to find a way to work that into sort of the work week so they have time to do that.